Move it, Cripple. The words sliced through the air like a switchblade. Tiana Wells froze, her fingers tightening around the joystick of her motorized wheelchair. She had just turned from the punch table, a plastic cup of cranberry spritzer trembling in her hand. She immediately tried to back up, tried to move the chair out of the way, to disappear into some quiet corner where she wouldn't be in anyone's line of sight. Her thumb nudged the controller. Nothing. Her back wheel was lightly caught against a decorative plant stand, wedged behind her when she wasn't looking. She tried again. The motor whirred, but the chair wouldn't budge. Panic tightened her throat. "I'm sorry," she whispered, mostly to herself. The voice that had called out shrill, mocking, and far too confident came again, now clearer from across the buffet line. "Did I stutter?" Tiana turned slightly, cheeks burning. 3 girls stood nearby, dressed in floor-length gowns, champagne glasses in hand, and smiles sharp enough to slice stone. The one in the middle, tall and poised in a silver sequin dress, raised an eyebrow with exaggerated patience. "I said you're blocking the shrimp cocktail, sweetheart," the girl added louder. "Some of us don't want to crawl to dinner." Laughter bubbled up from the group, not joyous but cruel, meant to sting. Heads turned, but no one said anything. A couple standing nearby averted their eyes. A waiter passed briskly without stopping. A woman in a navy gown glanced over and then fixed her smile on her companion. Pretending not to see, Tiana's face burned. She hadn't even made it 10 feet into the ballroom. She had told herself she could handle it. A night out. A formal gala at the Bellington estate. Alone. In her chair. Facing the world again. She wanted to believe this night would be different. That she wouldn't feel like a burden. That she wouldn't be looked at like she didn't belong. And now she was exactly what she feared. A scene. The girl in silver took a single step forward, and with all the subtlety of a child kicking a toy, nudged the wheel of Tiana's chair with her foot. Not hard, but deliberately. The cup in Tiana's hand tipped, sending crimson liquid down the front of her blue velvet dress. A few muted gasps. Tiana's hands trembled on the controls again, desperately trying to reverse. Still stuck. Her lips parted, but no sound came. The humiliation wrapped around her ribs like a vice. The laughter echoed in her ears louder than the music. Her legs didn't move, never would again, but she had never felt so naked, so exposed, so helpless. She didn't cry. Not here. Not in front of them. And then someone stepped in. Before we continue, if you find this story interesting, make sure to subscribe. It really encourages us to keep bringing you more. A soft presence moved to her side. The scent of vanilla and something warm, maybe coconut oil, brushed past her. A voice, clear and calm, pierced the air. "Miss, that was uncalled for." The girl in silver blinked. "What?" The woman standing between them wasn't wearing a gown. She wore the uniform of the catering staff, a white shirt, pressed black vest, dark slacks. But she didn't carry herself like a servant. She stood tall, firm. Her curls were tucked beneath a black head wrap. Her skin glowed deep and golden under the chandeliers. She couldn't have been more than 24. "I said," the woman repeated, her voice still soft but louder now. "That was uncalled for." The girl in silver laughed. "You're just staff. You really think you get to police my tone?" The young woman stepped forward, not threatening, but undeniably present. "I'm Maya Williams. I serve food, yes. But I don't serve cruelty." Now the laughter stopped. The silver dress girl's face twitched. "Do you know who I am?" "No," Maya replied, "but I know what you just did." "Oh?" Tiana stared at Maya, stunned. Without another word, Maya turned and knelt slightly, dabbing the front of Tiana's dress gently, with a folded napkin from her apron. Her hands were calm, professional. She didn't apologize, didn't coo. She simply cleaned. Then she looked Tiana in the eye. "Are you okay?" she asked, steady and direct. Tiana nodded, even though her throat was too tight for words. Maya's voice softened, but it didn't shrink. "You don't have to move for anyone, but would you like me to help you get somewhere quieter?" Tiana exhaled. "Yes," she whispered. With a quiet grace, Maya guided the wheelchair, adjusting the angle to free it from the planter behind. She didn't rush. She didn't make a scene. She just moved with purpose, as if protecting something sacred. As they passed the buffet, no one laughed. They reached a small table near the edge of the room, out of the spotlight but still part of the event. Maya adjusted the chair gently, wiped her hands on her apron, then leaned in. "Don't let them shrink you." And with that, she turned and walked back toward the kitchen. Tiana sat still for a moment. The chandelier light caught the damp stain on her dress. But she didn't feel ashamed anymore. She looked around the room, really looked, and for once, she didn't feel like the weakest person there. She didn't know Maya Williams, but something about the way she stood up, not just for Tiana, but to everything false in the room, stayed with her. Maybe this night wasn't ruined after all. Maybe it had just begun. Tiana sat quietly at the table near the edge of the ballroom, her heart still hammering from what had just happened. The laughter, the humiliation, the icy silence of the crowd, it all clung to her skin like sweat. Yet amid the embarrassment, something unexpected pulsed inside her, a quiet defiance. She traced the words Maya had whispered before leaving, "Don't let them shrink you." The music resumed in the background, a slow jazz number that sounded elegant and forgettable. Waiters moved like shadows, weaving through glittering gowns and expensive suits. But none approached her table. She could feel the eyes again, quick, stolen glances. Not the cruel stares from earlier, but curious ones, uncertain, calculating. Some people were probably wondering who she was. Others, perhaps, were wondering who Maya was. Tiana adjusted herself in the chair, brushing at the stain on her dress. It had already begun to dry. She thought about leaving. She could slip out quietly, call a rideshare, go home and let the whole evening collapse into another story she'd never tell. But then again, something stopped her. That girl in silver, the way she looked so entitled, so invincible, and the silence of the room. All of them had seen it, and not one person spoke until Maya did. She glanced toward the kitchen entrance where Maya had disappeared. The swinging door moved every now and then, offering glimpses of trays, steam, workers in black and white uniforms. But no Maya. A voice cut through her thoughts. "Are you all right, dear?" Tiana looked up. An older woman, perhaps in her late 60s, stood near the table, holding a clutch purse and a glass of sparkling water. Her hair was silver and pulled into a chignon. Her eyes, a sharp hazel, were kind but guarded. "I'm fine," Tiana said politely, her voice soft. "I saw what happened," the woman said, taking the seat across from her without asking. What that girl did was appalling. And what the young woman Maya, did, was brave. Tiana nodded slowly. She didn't even hesitate. "No," the woman agreed, sipping her water. "Most people wouldn't have. That's what frightens me." She set the glass down gently. "I'm Evelyn Hart. My husband helped fund this event, or rather my late husband." Tiana's eyebrows lifted slightly. "I'm sorry." Evelyn waved a thin hand. "He was a good man, but I've had 20 years to get used to the word late." Her tone was dry, not bitter. "And you?" Tiana, Wells, Evelyn repeated, then leaned in slightly. "You don't look like the kind of girl who gets easily knocked down." Tiana laughed once, quiet and surprised. "You didn't see me back there." "I saw enough," Evelyn said. "You didn't leave. That counts." Tiana glanced down at her lap, unsure how to answer. She wasn't used to being spoken to so directly by someone older, especially not in rooms like this. "Don't mistake wealth for courage, dear," Evelyn said, as if reading her thoughts. "Most of these people are terrified of anything that threatens their reflection. That girl, she lashes out because deep down she's scared of being small." Tiana looked back up, meeting Evelyn's eyes. "And Maya?" Evelyn smiled, a little softer now. "Maya knows exactly how small this world can be. That's why she's not afraid of it." Before Tiana could respond, the doors to the kitchen swung open again, and this time, Maya stepped out. Her vest was slightly rumpled. Her sleeves rolled halfway up her forearms. She held a tray with several glasses of water, moving quickly and gracefully between tables. Her eyes scanned, took in, responded like someone trained to anticipate rather than react. When she reached Tiana's table, she set a glass in front of her without a word. "You're still here," Maya said finally, standing tall beside her. Tiana looked up. "I thought about leaving." "But you didn't." Tiana smiled faintly. "Neither did you." Maya tilted her head, considering. Then she looked at Evelyn. "Would you like anything, ma'am?" Evelyn gave her a pointed smile. "Just your name. I heard you were the one with the spine in this room." "Maya Williams," she replied with a nod of quiet pride. Evelyn extended her hand. "Evelyn Hart, we could use more of you." Maya shook her hand, her expression polite but reserved. She didn't linger. "Let me know if you need anything else," she said, and turned back toward the kitchen. Tiana watched her disappear again, that quiet power trailing behind her like a ripple on still water. "She's remarkable," Tiana whispered. "If you also feel for Tiana and believe Maya is truly admirable, hit like to show your support. And don't forget to comment with the place you're watching from. Who knows, someone nearby might be watching this story along with you." Evelyn nodded. "People like her don't make headlines, but they change lives." The music shifted again, now something classical, piano and strings. "I think I'll stay a while longer," Tiana said. Evelyn smiled. "Good, make them get used to you." As the evening continued, Tiana remained in her seat. She listened. She observed. She watched Maya move through the room, never loud, never obvious, but always present. And she thought of what Evelyn had said about fear, about reflection, about the power of staying. Maybe this night was supposed to shake her. Maybe it was meant to show her who people really were. But maybe, just maybe, it was also here to remind her of who she still was. She wasn't invisible, not tonight. 3 days later, the knock at her apartment door came at exactly 4 p.m. Tiana had been expecting it, but the sound still startled her. She set aside her tablet, adjusted the scarf around her neck, her new favorite since the gala, and wheeled toward the door. Her heart thudded with anticipation, a strange cocktail of nerves and excitement swirling in her chest. When she opened it, Maya stood there, holding 2 takeout containers in one hand and a small, beat-up music speaker in the other. "You said 4, Maya grinned. "And I come bearing tacos and Nina Simone." Tiana's face lit up. "You might be the perfect person." "Careful," Maya said, stepping inside. "I might start believing it." They settled at the small kitchen table near the window, the golden afternoon light cutting long shadows across the floor. Tiana's apartment was small but filled with warmth plants in mismatched pots, postcards stuck to the fridge, and drawings from before tucked between books on the shelf. Maya glanced around. "You live alone?" "Yeah," Tiana said. "My mom wasn't thrilled about it, but I needed space, especially after the accident." "She close by?" "Too close," Tiana smirked. "She calls every night to make sure I'm still breathing." "That's love," Maya said, setting the food down and pulling out a chair. "Or panic?" "Both," Tiana replied, already opening a container. "But tonight, she'll be thrilled to hear I had company." They ate in comfortable silence at first. The sound of Nina's voice filled the space between them, low and grainy. "It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life." Maya chewed, then spoke through a mouthful of tortilla. "So, you really haven't drawn since the accident?" Tiana paused, then nodded. "Not until you." Maya set her taco down. "You mean that?" Tiana looked her straight in the eye. "I do." The words settled between them. Maya leaned back slightly, studying her. "I've been thinking about that night, Tiana. If you're still here and enjoying the story, we'd love your support. Take a second to hit subscribe. It really means a lot," I said softly. "About how everyone just stood there, watching. I keep wondering why no one said anything." "They were waiting for permission," Maya replied. "It's easier to stay silent than to be the first to speak." Tiana nodded slowly. "I used to think I'd be braver, that I'd stand up if I ever saw something like that." "You did," Maya said. "No," Tiana corrected. "You did." I froze. "You were alone in a room full of people," Maya said. "That's a different kind of courage. You showed up." Tiana let that sink in. "Still," she added after a moment, "I keep wondering, what if you hadn't stepped in? What if you weren't working that night?" Maya leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table. "Then maybe you'd be telling someone else's story right now. Or maybe no one would be telling it at all. But you did." I couldn't not. There was a pause, filled with Nina's smoky voice and the fading light. Then Maya asked, "Do you want to go back?" "To the gala?" Tiana blinked. "To the people," Maya said. "To the kind of spaces that told you you didn't belong." Tiana looked down at her lap. "I'm not sure." I think you should, Maya said. But not for them. For you. Tiana looked back up. You make it sound easy. Maya chuckled. It's not, but it's worth it. There was a beat of silence before Maya reached into her tote bag and pulled out a manila folder. I brought something for you, she said, sliding it across the table. Tiana opened it and blinked. Inside were photos. Blurry, slightly grainy images from the gala. One captured Maya standing in front of Tiana's wheelchair. Chin raised, arm out. Another showed Tiana, alone, shoulders square, her back to the crowd. Where did you get these? Tiana asked, stunned. One of the busboys took them. He sent them to me afterward, Maya said. Said he'd never seen anyone do what I did in that room and he wanted to remember it. Tiana's hands trembled slightly as she traced the edge of one photo. You should draw these, Maya said. Not because they're pretty, because they matter. Tiana nodded slowly. Will you pose for me? I already am, Maya smiled. Every time I show up. They finished eating, and Maya helped Tiana clear the table. The sky outside had turned indigo, and the first stars peeked out as they moved to the living room. Tiana rolled toward her art desk, a space she hadn't touched in a year, and flipped open her sketchbook. Maya stood behind her quietly, watching. Tiana picked up her pencil and began to draw not just a figure, but a moment. The tilt of a head, the strength in stillness, the defiance in a simple act of standing. This time, her hand didn't shake. When she was finished for the night, she looked at Maya. I want to do something, she said. Like what? I want to take this public, speak about what happened, share this, not just the drawing, but the story. Maya's expression softened. Then let's make sure people see it. Tiana exhaled. It's terrifying. So is staying silent. Tiana nodded. Then I guess it's time I used my voice again. Oh. The community center auditorium was nothing fancy, just rows of collapsible chairs, scuffed wooden floors, and a makeshift stage with a borrowed podium. But to Tiana, it might as well have been Carnegie Hall. She sat in the wings, her fingers curled tightly around the sketchpad resting on her lap. Her chest rose and fell with shallow breaths, her footless legs still, but her heart beating like she was about to leap into a war zone. In some ways, she was. On stage, the host was finishing his introduction. And now, please welcome a brave young woman with a voice we all need to hear, Miss Tiana Wells. Applause. Tiana froze. Maya, standing behind her in the shadows, leaned down and whispered, You've already done the hardest part. You showed up. Tiana turned her head just slightly. And if I mess this up, then mess it up loudly, Maya said with a grin. Tiana gave a tight smile. Then, with effort, she rolled her chair toward the ramp. The applause grew louder as she emerged under the lights. She paused. Just a beat. Not because she was unsure, but because she needed that moment. To center herself. To breathe. Then she moved forward. She reached the podium and adjusted the mic. The audience, mostly locals, students, some older folks from the neighborhood, settled into silence. Hi, Tiana began, voice soft but steady. My name is Tiana Wells. I'm an artist, a student, a daughter, and I also use a wheelchair. Some people think that last part defines me. A few heads nodded. She held up the first sketch, a printed version of the moment at the gala, Maya standing protectively in front of her. This happened at a charity gala last week. I was mocked, laughed at, kicked, and not a single guest said a word. The room was dead silent. She took a breath. Except one person. A young woman named Maya Williams. She wasn't a guest, she wasn't rich, she was staff, and she stepped in when no one else would. There. Tiana's voice cracked slightly on the word staff. She cleared her throat and went on. She didn't protect me because I was fragile. She protected me because I wasn't, because I deserved to be there as much as anyone else. And because she remembered something that most people forget: our silence tells the world what we're willing to accept. In the back row, Maya stood with her arms folded, not smiling, just listening, steady. Tiana flipped to the next drawing, a side view of her sketching, with Maya in the background, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. I didn't just draw her, Tiana said. I drew the moment I remembered who I was. There was a murmur of emotion in the crowd now, nothing loud, just a soft ripple, a recognition. For a year after my accident, I didn't draw. I didn't show up to things. I told myself I didn't belong anymore. That maybe people were right to look past me. She paused, her voice lower now. I let them shrink me, until she didn't. She looked toward Maya now. I want to ask you something, she said, turning back to the crowd. Who are you when no one's watching? Who are you when someone's being hurt, and it would be easier to look away? She set the sketchbook down and closed it gently. I came here tonight not to show art but to make something. A space where people like me don't feel like they need permission to exist. A space where someone in a uniform, or a wheelchair, or a hoodie doesn't have to justify being treated like a human being. The applause started slowly, one person, then another, and then the entire auditorium was standing. Tiana blinked back tears. She hadn't expected that. As the event ended, a line of people formed, neighbors, students, older women with watery eyes, all wanting to shake her hand, to thank her, to see her. For the first time in a long time, she didn't shrink from the attention. Later, as the crowd thinned out, Maya appeared by her side. You were powerful up there, she said. I was scared, Tiana admitted. Good, Maya said. That means you cared. They walked together well, Tiana rolled. Maya walked down the sidewalk outside the community center. The night air was crisp. The stars just beginning to blink awake above the rooftops. I want to do more of this, Tiana said. Not just art. Advocacy, speaking, creating space. Maya smiled. So what's stopping you? Tiana looked up at the sky. Not a damn thing. Maya chuckled. You're starting to sound like me. You say that like it's a bad thing. They stopped at the corner. A light breeze danced through the trees. You ever think maybe you were supposed to be there that night? Tiana asked. That everything led to it? Maya was quiet for a moment. Then, she nodded. Yeah, I do. And not because of fate, but because when you carry pain long enough, you start to recognize it in others, and you don't let it sit alone. Tiana felt something shift again inside her, something that had been locked away since the crash, something like purpose. Thank you, she said. For what? For not letting me disappear. Maya looked at her. You were never invisible, Tiana. Some of us just know how to see. The next morning, Tiana woke up to over 200 unread messages. Her phone, usually silent except for her mom's nightly check-ins and the occasional university notification, was vibrating non-stop on the nightstand. She stared at the screen in disbelief. Emails, texts, Instagram DMs, missed calls. The top notification was a tagged post from a local journalist she barely knew. Young artist gives a voice to the unseen. Tiana Wells delivers a stunning public speech on courage, community, and disability justice. Watch the full clip here. Tiana blinked, then clicked. The video had been taken from the back of the auditorium, but the audio was clear. There she was under that cheap fluorescent spotlight, her voice trembling at first, then rising with every word. It wasn't just the speech that caught attention. It was the stillness in the crowd, the urgency in her voice, the drawings, the emotion. By noon, it had been shared over 4,000 times. Tiana leaned back in her chair, hand covering her mouth. She felt both exposed and electrified. For the first time since the accident, her story wasn't just a personal burden, it was public truth. A text from Maya lit up the screen. Maya, looks like someone woke up a giant. Tiana grinned and typed back. Tiana, are we in trouble? Maya, oh, definitely, but the good kind. Later that afternoon, they met again, this time in the park near campus. The autumn wind carried the scent of roasted nuts and distant hot dogs from a nearby cart. Leaves crunched under Maya's boots as she walked alongside Tiana, who rolled smoothly across the path, her scarf flapping slightly in the breeze. You sure you're ready for all this? Maya asked, nodding toward a pair of college students who had clearly recognized Tiana from the video. They whispered to each other, then gave shy smiles. Tiana returned the smile, though her stomach was in knots. No, but I'm not running. Good, Maya said, because you're not just telling your story now, you're telling ours. They settled at a bench near the duck pond. Maya handed her a warm cup of cider, and they sat in silence for a while. Tiana finally broke it. I've been thinking. I want to start something. Not just one talk. Not just one drawing, but something real, ongoing. Maya raised an eyebrow. Like what? A series. Visual and spoken. Stories from people like me, like us. People who've been silenced, ignored, or talked over. I want to draw them, interview them, share their words. Maya smiled, slow and wide. You're building a platform. I want to call it unshrinkable, Tiana said, almost shyly. Because that's what you made me feel. Maya stared at her. Tiana. That name. It's perfect. I want you to be part of it. Me? You helped start it. You are part of it. Maya sipped her cider, thoughtful. I don't usually do the spotlight thing. You don't have to. Just be the anchor. The truth. Check. The friend who tells me when I'm drifting. Huh. Maya grinned. Oh, I'll do that. Loudly. They laughed, and for a moment, it felt like nothing could go wrong. But it wasn't long before reality caught up. 2 days later, Tiana received an email marked urgent from the Bellington Foundation, the organization that had hosted the gala where everything began. The tone was sterile, professional, and painfully polite. Dear Miss Wells, we commend your recent advocacy and visibility efforts in the disability community. However, we are concerned that your recent speech and sketches may misrepresent the event held at the Bellington estate. Several families have expressed discomfort with how they were portrayed online. We ask that you refrain from using imagery or narratives associated with the gala in future materials. Failure to comply may result in legal action. Tiana's stomach dropped. She forwarded the email to Maya immediately. 2 minutes later, her phone rang. Tell me you're not scared, Maya said without a greeting. I'm not yet, Tiana said, but I'm shaking. They're bluffing. They're embarrassed. That's all this is. They have lawyers, Maya. I have student debt and a sketchbook. Maya's voice didn't waver. You also have the truth. There was a long pause on the line. I don't want to be silenced again, Tiana said softly. Then don't be. What if they actually go through with it? Then we go public. We show the email. We show them what it looks like when powerful people try to keep others small. Tiana let out a breath. You really think people will stand with me? I stood with you when nobody else did, Maya said. You think I'm the only one? That night, Tiana posted the email redacting names, but leaving the threat plain as day. She wrote only 3 words with it. We won't shrink. It went viral. By morning, journalists were calling. Civil rights groups were reaching out. Her inbox was flooded with stories from strangers, disabled artists, black workers in luxury spaces, women who had been shamed into silence. And with every message, Tiana realized something. She wasn't just speaking for herself anymore. She was speaking for all the invisible. The front page of the Santa Monica Sun ran the headline in bold black letters. Unshrinkable. Artist Tiana Wells fights back after threats from local gala host. Below it, a grainy photo of Tiana at the podium, chin lifted, sketchbook in hand, captured the exact moment the city began to notice her. Not as a victim, not as a girl in a wheelchair, but as a voice. Tiana sat at her kitchen counter, the paper spread out in front of her, her hands barely steady enough to hold her coffee mug. Her mom had called 3 times already this morning. Half in tears, half in pride. Her inbox was a mess. Reporters were requesting interviews. Local TV stations wanted to do a segment, but in the middle of all that noise, it was Maya's simple text that anchored her. Maya, this is the part where they realize they picked the wrong woman to threaten. Tiana smiled, but it was small and quiet. Truthfully, she was exhausted, not just from the spotlight, but from knowing that one misstep could unravel everything. Still, something kept her moving. That same fire Maya had first lit under her weeks ago hadn't gone out. It was spreading. Later that day, she met Maya at their usual cafe. It had started to feel like neutral ground where they weren't just artist and muse, speaker and protector, but partners. In something bigger. Any regrets yet? Maya asked, sliding into the seat across from her with 2 hot teas. Only that I can't clone you and send you to every rally with me, Tiana said, sipping. Maya chuckled. One of me is plenty. Trust me. Tiana set her cup down and leaned forward. Something's happening, bigger than I expected. You didn't just tell a story, Maya said. You gave people language for something they've been feeling for years. That's power. Tiana nodded. But now they're watching. and expecting. I don't want to fail them. You won't, Maya said simply. Tiana paused. What if I do? Then you'll get up, and I'll still be here, and so will they. Just then, a woman in her late 50s walked past their table, paused, then turned back. She wore a knit sweater and glasses, and there was something familiar in the lines of her face, like she carried years of swallowed words. Excuse me, she said, voice slightly nervous. Are you Tiana Wells? Tiana blinked. Yes. The woman hesitated, eyes shining. I saw your video. I haven't used my wheelchair in public in over a year. Too many stares. Too many comments. But today, I got dressed, and I came out. Because of you. Tiana felt her throat tighten. Thank you for telling me that. No, the woman said, shaking her head. Thank you for making space. After she left, Maya looked at Tiana and said, That's why you keep going. Later that evening, Tiana sat in her living room, staring at a whiteboard propped against the wall. In big letters, she had written the title, Unshrinkable Project. Below it, a list was forming: interviewees, sketch sessions, blog post ideas, short-form videos, stories from people in wheelchairs, people who worked behind the scenes, people who had been told they were too much, or not enough. Maya had even added a sticky note at the bottom. Do a piece on the busboy who took the photo. He saw truth too. But for every note of support, there was resistance. Online trolls had found her pages. A few local blogs had begun attacking her for weaponizing victimhood. And that night, her university art department sent her a vague, cautious email. While we value your growing platform, please remember that your public statements reflect upon the university. We encourage discretion when discussing donors and public figures connected to the institution. Tiana read it twice. Then again, they want me to be quiet, she said aloud. She forwarded it to Maya. A moment later, the phone rang. Want me to write a response? Maya asked flatly. No, Tiana said, staring at the screen. I want to host my next event on campus. Maya whistled. Now that's the energy. 2 weeks later, flyers appeared across the university. Unshrinkable, stories that refuse silence, live exhibit, and panel discussion. The location? Right in the central quad. It was bold, borderline confrontational, but it was legal. And more importantly, it was right. Tiana didn't just showcase her art this time. She featured others. Portraits and voices of people who'd never stood behind a podium, never seen themselves in gallery walls. Maya helped set up the booths. She brought water. She managed the line when it stretched longer than anyone expected. Tiana's mom came too. At one point, Tiana looked out over the crowd, dozens of faces, some familiar, some new, and she didn't feel small at all. She felt essential. In the final moments of the panel, she took the mic. I don't want to be a symbol, she said. I want to be a mirror. I want people to see themselves in strength, in pain, in resistance. I want to build a world where no one has to apologize for taking up space. Applause erupted. And in the back, Maya stood arms folded, quiet, proud. The first threat didn't come in the form of an email or a troll post. It came as a neatly folded envelope, slipped beneath Tiana's apartment door. She noticed it early the next morning, cream-colored paper, no return address, sealed with a thick line of glue that made her stomach twist. It didn't look like junk mail. It looked intentional. She hesitated, fingers brushing the edges. Then she opened it. Inside was a single sentence, typed in bold, centered. You're playing a dangerous game. Stop before someone gets hurt. No name, no signature, no context. Tiana stared at it for a long time. The sunlight filtered through the blinds, cutting sharp lines across her floor. The world outside felt so normal, birds chirping, cars passing, her neighbor's kid riding a scooter. But the letter pulsed in her hands like a quiet alarm. She took a picture and texted it to Maya. Tiana, this was under my door this morning. The reply came instantly. Maya, I'm on my way. By the time Maya arrived 20 minutes later, Tiana had already called the police. 2 officers came by, took a report, asked the usual questions, any recent threats, anyone with a grudge, any exes, and left with little more than polite shrugs and an offer to check in again soon. Maya was furious. They brushed it off, she said, pacing across the living room. They didn't even dust for prints. Tiana sat at the table, staring at the envelope. They think it's just a scare tactic. It is, Maya said, her jaw tight, but that doesn't make it any less serious. I don't think it's from a stranger, Tiana said softly. Maya stopped. What do you mean? Tiana hesitated. I think it's someone from the gala, or connected to Bellington. You think they'd go that far? I embarrassed them, publicly. I said their name. I made it impossible for them to pretend. Maya folded her arms. So what now? Do we stop? Tiana looked up at her. No, we go bigger. Maya stared at her for a moment, then nodded slowly. Then we tighten security. We get your social accounts protected. We install cameras, and you don't go anywhere alone. I can't live like I'm hiding, Tiana said. You're not hiding, Maya replied. You're building something, but you can be careful while you do it. Tiana nodded, grateful again for Maya's presence. She didn't just offer comfort, she offered action. That night, they launched the official Unshrinkable website. It featured Tiana's drawings, short interviews, video clips from the panel, and a submission form for others to share their stories. Within hours, entries began to pour in from veterans, janitors, disabled poets, former foster kids, nurses, and more. Stories of being overlooked, dismissed, belittled, and finding their way back to dignity. One submission read, I was the only black nurse on my floor. For years, they called me girl. Your words reminded me I've always been a woman, and worth more. Another, my son is autistic. People avoid us. But when I showed him your artwork, he pointed and said, she's strong like you. Tiana read every single one. She cried, she laughed, and then she drew. She drew portraits in charcoal, capturing the curve of a smile, the weight in a stare, the lines carved by survival. Maya helped catalog them, reaching out to contributors, scheduling new interviews. Every day, their little project grew, but the pushback grew too. News outlets began running hit pieces, quiet ones at first. Questions about Tiana's motivations, whether she was capitalizing on victimhood. One blog even claimed her story was exaggerated for attention. Maya was livid. This is textbook, she said one evening, slamming her laptop shut. They can't deny what happened, so they're trying to discredit you. Tiana sighed, exhausted. I knew this would happen. I just didn't think it would get so personal. Maya looked at her. Do you want to stop? Tiana didn't answer right away. She looked down at her latest drawing, a portrait of an elderly man with a Vietnam vet cap, eyes full of quiet resilience. No, she said, because this isn't about me anymore. Maya's voice softened. You're braver than you know. No, Tiana said, meeting her gaze. I just have better company than most. They shared a quiet smile. The next week, a local news station invited Tiana to do a live segment. It would be her first time on TV, not a clip or a viral video, but an interview. Real questions, real stakes. As they prepared in the green room, Maya stood beside her, adjusting the lapel mic the crew had clipped to her collar. Ready? She asked. No, Tiana said honestly, but I'm going anyway. Maya smiled. That's my girl. The lights in the studio were blinding. The cameras whirred softly. The host was polite but clipped, clearly under time pressure. So, Miss Wells, he began, you've become something of a local icon. But there are critics who say you're exploiting trauma for fame. What do you say to that? Tiana didn't flinch. I say visibility is not exploitation, and speaking out isn't vanity, it's survival. The host raised an eyebrow. But aren't you worried about backlash? I've lived through worse than comments, Tiana replied calmly. I've lived through silence, and I won't go back to that. No. In the control room, Maya watched with her arms crossed, smiling quietly. When the segment ended, the crew clapped softly. The host shook her hand, then whispered, That was powerful. Thank you. As Tiana rolled off the set, Maya met her at the exit. Another fire started, Maya said. Tiana smiled. Then let's keep it burning. By mid-November, Unshrinkable had become more than a project. It was a movement. What started as one drawing, one speech, and one moment of quiet courage had blossomed into an ever-growing mosaic of stories, voices, and truth. Every post Tiana shared, Every portrait she sketched, every voice clip Maya helped edit, each one struck a chord. And together, they became something undeniable. But with the light came the shadows. Tiana sat in her living room, watching the latest news story unfold on her laptop screen. It was a local panel, three suited voices debating whether social justice art was compromising traditional values in schools and galleries. One of the guests, a stern-looking man with slicked-back gray hair, held up a printed copy of her sketch from the gala. "This," he declared, "isn't art. It's political manipulation. It's reverse discrimination masquerading as courage. And I think we need to ask, should taxpayers be funding this kind of activism in our institutions?" Tiana closed the laptop, her jaw tight. Maya, seated across from her with a cup of black tea and a notepad full of interview schedules, glanced up. "Let me guess," she said. "Old man yells at cloud?" Tiana huffed. "Old man yells at courage, apparently. Good. That means we're bothering the right people." Tiana shook her head. "It just never ends. I used to think that if you told the truth clearly enough, people would listen." "They do," Maya said, "but not all at once, and not without a fight." There was a beat of silence. "You okay?" Maya asked. "I'm tired," Tiana admitted. "Not giving up. Tired. Just bone deep. Carry this weight every day tired." Maya nodded. "That's real." She stood and walked over, kneeling next to Tiana's chair. Her hand rested gently on Tiana's arm. "You're allowed to pause," Maya said. "You don't have to carry the whole world alone." Tiana looked at her. "You're not just saying that, right? I'm saying that as the woman who's been watching you lift 10 times more than anyone your age should have to. You've done enough to rest for a day, or a week, whatever you need." Tiana let out a slow breath, and for the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to not feel guilty for needing rest. They retreated for a few days to the coast. Maya had suggested it. A quiet Airbnb, a cottage by the sea just south of Big Sur. No Wi-Fi, just waves, gulls, paper notebooks, and long walks along wooden boardwalks. Tiana brought her sketch pad, of course. She couldn't not draw. But this time, it wasn't portraits or political imagery. It was the ocean. Shells. Maya's boots in the sand. Her own hand reaching toward a horizon she could never quite touch but always chased. One night, wrapped in blankets on the porch, they listened to the waves crashing and the fire crackling beside them. The stars were wild and bright. Tiana turned to Maya. "Can I ask you something personal?" "Sure. Why did you help me that night? You could have stayed quiet like everyone else." Maya was quiet for a long moment. "When I was 10, she said, my cousin was beat up at a park. For being gay. No one helped him. I saw it happen. I didn't move." Tiana didn't speak. She knew the weight in Maya's voice. "I carried that guilt," Maya continued, "for years. Promised myself I'd never stand still again, especially not in the face of cruelty." "You kept that promise," Tiana said softly. "Yeah," Maya nodded. "But it took meeting you to realize. Standing up doesn't have to be loud. Sometimes, it's just presence. You reminded me of that." They sat in silence again, the kind that didn't need filling. Then Maya said, "And now I'll ask you something." "Okay. Mand, do you know what you're becoming?" Tiana furrowed her brow. "A tired woman in a wheelchair eating way too many cheddar crackers?" Maya laughed. "No, a catalyst. A change maker. You're not just telling stories, you're shifting the way people see the world." "That's terrifying." "Yeah," Maya agreed. "But it's also freedom." When they returned from the coast, Tiana found something waiting for her. An invitation, hand-delivered, thick cardstock with a gold-embossed seal. "The Bellington Foundation invites you to our annual winter gala. In recognition of your recent contributions to advocacy, inclusion, and the arts, we extend this formal invitation to join us as a guest of honor." Tiana stared at it. Maya read it over her shoulder and raised both brows. "That's rich." "They want to fix their image," Tiana muttered. "They don't want me. They want the optics of me." So what do we do?" Tiana held the card between her fingers like a match she could light at any moment. "We go," she said. Maya blinked. "Seriously?" "We go, but on our terms. We show up, we speak, we make it impossible for them to pretend again." Maya nodded slowly, a grin spreading. Now that's the Tiana Wells I know. Tiana looked down at the invitation once more. She wasn't nervous this time. She was ready. The winter gala was held at the same Bellington estate that had once humiliated Tiana, crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and all. But this time, she wasn't arriving through the service entrance or tucking herself in a corner by the punch table. This time, she was on the guest list. Tiana sat in the back seat of a town car provided by a community donor, one of the many who had reached out in support after her story broke nationwide. She wore a deep forest green velvet gown that shimmered beneath the soft car light. Her wheelchair had been polished, custom fitted with hand-sewn leather accents. Her hair, braided and pinned with gold clips, gleamed like a crown. She wasn't just attending, she was reclaiming. Beside her sat Maya, elegant in a black suit with satin lapels, her curls loose for the first time since Tiana had met her. There was no uniform tonight. No name tag. No line between guest and staff. "You sure you want to do this?" Maya asked, as they pulled into the long circular driveway of the estate. Tiana took a breath. Absolutely. The car door opened. Cameras flashed. Apparently, Unshrinkable had become click-worthy enough to attract press. The same media outlets that once ignored her presence were now shouting her name, trying to capture her expression. But she didn't flinch. She rolled forward with grace, Maya walking just beside her, one hand gently resting on the back of her chair. Inside, everything looked the same, too bright, too grand, too cold. But Tiana had changed, and because of her, the room felt different. People didn't look through her anymore. They looked at her with curiosity, hesitation, admiration. She could see the calculation in their eyes. Is she here to burn the house down, or to forgive us? The truth was, Tiana wasn't there to do either. She was there to tell the story they tried to silence. A Bellington board member greeted her, all glossy smile and rehearsed warmth. "Miss Wells, we're so honored you accepted our invitation." Tiana returned the smile, cool and measured. "I wouldn't have missed it." They were ushered toward the ballroom, where a string quartet played tasteful background music, and waiters floated by with trays of caviar-topped crackers. Tiana spotted familiar faces. The girl in the silver dress from the first gala, still beautiful, still smug, was now hovering near a fireplace, drink in hand. She froze when she saw Tiana. Their eyes met for a brief, charged second. Tiana held her gaze, then moved on. "Is she going to say something?" Maya whispered. "She doesn't have to," Tiana said. "She already said everything. I just finally heard her for what she is." The evening unfolded with all the pomp of high society. Speeches, donor shoutouts, a quick auction. Tiana mingled briefly, politely posing for photos, thanking supporters, answering the same questions over and over. But the main event was yet to come. As dinner plates were cleared and the house lights dimmed slightly, a stage light clicked on over the podium. The host of the evening, a Bellington executive with silver hair and a golden tie, took the microphone. "Tonight," he said, "we acknowledge the evolving landscape of art, courage, and social justice. We have learned, we have grown, and we are listening. And in that spirit, we are honored to invite a young woman who has reshaped how we see resilience. Please welcome Miss Tiana Wells." Applause, not the kind that thundered, but real. Tiana rolled toward the stage ramp slowly. Maya gave her shoulder a squeeze before letting go. Once at the podium, Tiana paused, let the silence settle. Then, she spoke. "Last time I was here, no one clapped for me." A few heads turned. Some stiffened. "I wasn't on the guest list. I was barely seen. And when I was humiliated in front of a room full of people, most of them said nothing." You could feel the discomfort rise. But one woman, someone no one here knew, saw me. She wasn't a donor. She wasn't dressed in pearls. She was staff. Her name was Maya Williams. She gestured toward Maya, who now stood in the back of the room, her hands clasped. The crowd turned to see her, and many clapped. Maya gave a modest nod. "I owe her more than thanks," Tiana continued, "because she reminded me that silence is complicity, and that we don't rise alone." She opened her sketchbook and held it up. A new drawing, one she hadn't shared yet. It was the Bellington ballroom, drawn in haunting charcoal strokes. Tiana at the center. A sea of faces turned away, except for one, Maya was the first spark, but the fire didn't stop there. It became unshrinkable, a movement for the unheard. More claps this time. She scanned the room. And let me say this. This is not about shame. It's about sight. We cannot heal what we refuse to see. So tonight, I ask each of you, what are you willing to witness? And more importantly, what are you willing to change? The applause grew, genuine and thunderous now. As she rolled off the stage, several guests stood. Not all, but enough. Later that night, as the gala ended and guests trickled out, Maya found Tiana on the terrace, looking up at the stars. You were calm, Maya said. Controlled, clear. I wasn't here to rage, Tiana said. I was here to reclaim. Maya smiled. You did. Tiana looked back at the ballroom behind them. Funny thing is, I don't even need their approval anymore. No, Maya said, but it feels good to make them see, doesn't it? Tiana nodded, and together, they watched the night stretch wide and dark and full of stars. The video of Tiana's speech at the gala was online within 24 hours. Someone from the press had recorded the whole thing on a handheld camcorder, not glamorous, a little shaky, but raw and honest. It spread like wildfire. Within 3 days, it had reached nearly 500,000 views. Within a week, it passed 1 million. But what mattered wasn't the numbers. It was the letters. Hundreds of them. Not emails, actual letters. Some typed, some handwritten in shaky cursive. Envelopes with return addresses from South Dakota, Baltimore, small towns in Texas, Florida, Ohio. They came from people in wheelchairs, from working-class mothers, from veterans, from retired teachers and former factory workers. One read, I was told I had no voice. I was told people like me just complain. But when I watched you stand your ground, I remembered I have something to say too. Another said, I've been a housekeeper at a hotel for 31 years. Never once did I get invited to speak up. Thank you for making space for women like us. Tiana sat cross-legged on her living room rug, surrounded by piles of envelopes and open cards. Maya sat nearby, sifting through the stack with a yellow highlighter, circling key quotes they could use in upcoming exhibits. I should have gotten you a poo box, Maya muttered, smiling. You didn't tell me I'd need a mailroom, Tiana replied. Maya picked up one envelope and squinted. This one smells like cinnamon. I kind of love her already. They both laughed, but under the laughter was something heavier. Tiana held a card close to her chest. It's becoming bigger than me, Maya. Maya looked up. That's what you wanted. I know. But now I feel responsible. Like, what if I misstep? What if I can't carry it right? Maya didn't speak for a moment. Then she crawled closer, sat next to Tiana, and said gently, Tiana, you're not carrying a burden. You're building a bridge. Tiana swallowed. Maya continued, you don't need to carry every story on your back. You just need to keep the door open. Let people walk through. That night, after Maya went home, Tiana stayed up late sketching again. Not people this time. Not faces or trauma. She sketched doors. Hundreds of them. Each one slightly different. Cracked open, swinging wide. Some with light pouring through. Some with shadows. All of them inviting. And in the corner of the page, she wrote one line in thick black ink. Let them in. Weeks later, the Unshrinkable Project hosted its first community exhibition not in a gallery, but in a repurposed old grocery store downtown that local volunteers had cleaned and painted over. They called it the Listening Room. There were no velvet ropes or curator plaques. Instead, each portrait was accompanied by a handwritten note from the subject. People could sit, walk, listen to audio clips, and leave their own stories behind on post-it notes, wall panels, and digital booths. There were no rules, no hierarchy, and people came. Dozens at first, then hundreds, entire families, church groups, elderly couples, young kids with disabilities, college professors, former gang members. They didn't just view the exhibit, they became part of it. A white veteran in his 70s hugged a black trans woman in her 20s after they both listened to the same story. Two teenage boys from South Central sat cross-legged by a portrait of a janitor and whispered, "That's what my mom does." A woman who hadn't spoken in public for 20 years asked if she could share her poetry. Tiana said yes. Word spread, the press came again, but this time, They weren't the main event. The people were. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Tiana found herself in a quiet corner of the listening room, sketching in a notebook while Maya stood nearby, making sure the sound equipment didn't glitch. "How's it